All we've been waiting for. All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. I can see a number of people are connecting just now. Okay. And you are welcome to the Aspire for Excellence Foundation webinar series for the month of September. Okay. Um, Thank you all, as many of you who have joined. A number of other people are joining right now, and I think we're just about to start. Okay. Today we will be considering a topic which is titled Leadership, the Pedestal to Greatness, Leadership, the Pedestal to Greatness. And with us today, our speaker for today is Engineer Amos Olunlewo. Okay, Engineer Amos Olunlewo. He's our speaker for today. Our speaker has been right here and he's ready right now. Okay, Engineer Amos Olunlewo, also known as Coach Famous Amos, CFA. He is a certified management specialist and executive leadership coach, helping business executives and aspiring leaders find solutions to issues and fulfill their desired destinies. He is currently the Project Delivery Manager Designee at the Nigeria LNG Limited. Apart from over 3 decades of excellent delivery and exceptional leadership in the oil and gas industry, at home and abroad, our guest is noted for outstanding academic excellence. He actually graduated from the Federal University of Technology, Akure, what is popularly known as FUTA in Nigeria, as the best graduating student in 1991, where he bagged a bachelor's degree in physics electronics with a first class honors. After gaining 2 master's degrees in communication physics at FUTA Akure and management at the Robert Gordon University, Aberdeen in the UK, he repeated the same feat in 2021 when he won the prestigious Academic Excellence Award at Engineering Institute of Technology, far away in Australia, having successfully completed his Masters of Engineering in Industrial Automation Engineering. Engineer Amos is a current registered engineer and is also a member of many professional bodies around the world. He is married with 2 amazing daughters. He is also a zonal pastor at the Redeemed Christian Church of God in Bonny Island in Nigeria. Engineer Amos is also a TEDx speaker, a blogger, and author of the unique leadership book titled Leadership Got Born, a practical toolkit for aspiring leaders and mentors. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome Engineer Amos, please, to take the floor. Engineer Amos, thank you very much. So, you are welcome. The floor is yours. He's also an author of a book. That's the book he authored right there. So, probably at the end, many of you will want to know how to get the book. Maybe at the end of the day, you ask him how to get the book, and I think he can share with you how to get the book. Myself, I've ordered a copy of the book anyway, so just to tell you that that I have already taken this last step. Engineer Amos, the floor is yours, sir. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Please, can you confirm, Dr. Mike, that you can hear me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh,
And
fantastic.
I can see you.
Okay. Okay. Good evening, everyone. And it's so nice to have you on this platform tonight. You could have chosen to be somewhere else, but the fact that you opted to be here is a demonstration of the fact that you are someone who really love value. And that is what Aspire for Leadership Excellence has been doing over the years. So kudos to Dr. Mike Iwebu I've come to know him for more than 6 months now. And I think the first time I came on this platform was around March, the edition that was held in March this year. And this will be my second time really. Having to come as well as a listener, a guest, and coming tonight as a speaker is something that I do not take for granted at all. I would also like to start by thanking every one of you on the call and to thank every members of the Aspire for Excellence. Dr. Mike, thank you so much for having me here. And thanks for really the confidence that you repose in me that tonight, that everyone that comes in here will have a very excellent time. I just want to ask you, our listeners and everyone participating tonight, if you might just in your heart look at these pictures of these excellent men and women and tell me maybe in the chat box how many of them you can recognize. I'll just give you about 30 seconds to do that. Put it in the chat how many of these great people you can recognize. I wouldn't mind if any one of us who really would like to speak can come forward. Just raise up your hand. I believe it's possible to bring you on. Tell us what you know about these amazing individuals. Is there anyone who wants to try?
I can try because I think I recognize 8 of them, either 7 or 8 of them. But I guess
Okay.
there are many more people who are here. I would like to leave the floor to.
Okay, please go ahead, Dr. Mike.
The first person I see it's Mandela. Okay, Mandela is noted for outstanding leadership in Africa. I would say, former president of South Africa. Okay, who was a leader. The other lady you see, she was in Mother Teresa in Calcutta in India. Okay, she's known for her benevolence works which she did, and she changed the world really by what she did. Actually, I understand she had only 3 pair of clothes in her life, but she had a huge impact. The other person I see is Chief Obafemi Awolowo, the best president Nigeria never had. Okay. We call him is popularly known as the best president Nigeria never had because he was the old premier for the western region in Nigeria, and he was the first man to democratize education. The first free education system Nigeria ever had was by this man. The next person you see on the right hand, at the top right, for me, I think that's Steve Jobs. He revolutionized. In fact, if we use telephones today for many things like the iPhone and the rest of that, it's because of this man. Okay. And I was telling I don't know whether it was my wife or who I was telling that the other day that very soon people will stop watching television in the distant future because you can do everything on your phone. Down, just going straight, it's everybody knows Pastor E. Adeboye. That's what he prefers to be called. But we all know he was a doctor of hydrodynamics in mathematics from the University of Lagos. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, probably the leader of one of the maybe largest churches. I'm talking of by size, not by in a location. Okay, and it is known about the 3 by 3 kilometer he heads in southern part. We can never fully talk about Dr. Miles Monroe. He died in a way that many of us do not understand in a crash, but he revolutionized the world. And everybody knows Bahamas today because of he talked about the kingdom, he preached about the kingdom and leadership. What strikes me about him, it's because he was not just only a preacher, he was, I think, a counselor at a point in time to, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 27 presidents or something like that in the world. You see what I mean? The next person we see close to him, everybody knows Dubai and UAE today because of him. Okay, in fact, he wrote a book on, I think, my vision. I think that's one of the books he had written, which I bought and read. I think the last person, that's why I said 7 or 8. I am thinking is Lee Kuan Yew. I am not
Fantastic.
sure.
That's him.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, I was thinking that's Lee Kuan Yew. He's the one who ruled Singapore for about 3 decades, and he basically transformed Lee Kuan Yew from a third world nation to a first world nation. I just hope I was able to summarize. Thank you.
You got 8 out of 8. Can we just put our hands together for him? We have electronics clapping, so let's put our hands together for Dr. Mike Iwebu. You made my day. You made my job very easy. One thing about each of these individuals is that they chose a course that they believed in, and they followed that course till the end. There's only one of them, two of them actually still alive. But you can see that the legacy that those that are dead, that are no longer with us anymore, that they have laid, those legacies still lives on. That for me is greatness. Greatness is when the cause that you led outlived you. So it's important that all of us on this call tonight realize that these are human beings like us. And if they can do amazing things, if they can do great things, we also can. And that is the essence of our gathering tonight. Many people have wrong perspective about leadership, especially in Africa, where we happen to hail from, most of us on this call. The examples that we see around us are those who really want to get into the position of leadership to lord it over the people. But that's absolutely the opposite of leadership. Leadership also is not about ourselves. You know, it's important that we get that very clear. If you look at someone like Mother Teresa, she lived a life of sacrifice right in the heart of India. Whether children that are orphans, whether the poor, she was just out there taking care of these people at the detriment of her own living. She lived for other people. So laying an example to us that leadership is actually not about ourselves, but about the impact that we are able to make in our society and in the life of people around us. A lot of people also think that leadership actually is for them to boost their ego. Around here, we like the title, Your Excellencies. Even if you are not excellent. And so that, in a way, makes people to puff up. And a lot of people desire a position of leadership for just that reason. They believe it gives you that prestige. People kowtow to you, they bow down to you, and all those things. A number of us will have seen a video that actually was released over the social media in the last 2 days. It was an event where Dr. Makinde invited a couple of people, among them the Obas in his domain. And what then happened was that when he came in, these Obas did not stand up. So Obasanjo, defender of Yoruba culture, stood up when he was to speak, and on the microphone, he actually commanded these Obas to stand up and sit down so that he would teach them what it means to respect authority. Ego. So leadership is not to lord it over the people. It's not to have our own self-interest or to boost our ego. Now, let's look at the right perspective of leadership, having looked at the wrong perspective, what leadership is not. So leadership is not about position, but it's about action. And we cannot overemphasize this because in Africa, despite the fact that we have human resources and great mineral resources buried under our soil, we are the poorest people on earth. And it is because people that are getting to the position of leadership are not taking the right actions for the benefit of everyone. Leadership also is not about title, but it's about the examples that you can lay, the examples that you can give for others to follow suit. Leadership also is not about the role, or the task that you have been given, but it's about role modeling. Most of the time, people talk about some people in position of leadership that will tell you, it is what I say that matters, not what I do. So do as I say and not as I do. And even this very present period we are in the nation, where we should be tightening our belts, and even the government is sending signal to everybody, tighten your belt, it's not going to get any better soon. Look at the National Assembly and what they are doing for themselves. As they were going on recess, we all remember that prayer was sent into the mailbox of every of the parliamentarian. And this is not an example that shows that we are leading. Leadership is also not about control, but in principle, both in context and in content, it's about service. Service is the simplest form of leadership. Washing the feet of others, ensuring that the pains in their lives are turned to gains. That is the work of leadership. Leadership is not about the power, but about empowerment. And I always believe that when we talk about empowerment, the very first thing to remember is that empowerment is about help. And for me, the way I see help is that help is very important and as the basic of empowering others to enjoy their lives. Help is how empowerment lifts people. How empowerment lifts people. So at the lower level of help is financial support or financial help. Leaders find very important ways of adding value to others through coaching, through mentoring, and through role modeling. These are the greatest level of help that any man can get. And that's why you have that adage that says, teach me how to fish and don't give me fish. Leadership also is not about manipulation, or it's about inspiration. And tonight, as we go along this journey, you will see a few examples of that. And lastly, leadership is not about the people per se, but it's about the purpose that people have in their lives and in their daily livings. So it was Ralph Nader that said, the function of leadership is to produce more leaders, not more followers. The function of the leadership is to produce more leaders, not more followers. Now, let's go a little bit down into what leadership really means. It is a relationship that creates positive change. You know, when I was preparing these slides, I deliberately put 2 individuals among those 8, but I removed them afterwards because I really wanted to project positive change and not negative change. I put a picture of Hitler there, and a number of us will recognize and remember who Hitler was. He led the Germans to kill thousands of Jews. And for him, he wanted to exterminate them, eradicate them from the surface of the earth. And so we remember the World War that happened and how Hitler was eventually defeated. He was a leader in a way, but a negative leader, one that we should not or never aspire to be. In that picture also, in the picture of those 8, I also add there Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden was the one responsible for 9/11. And we all remember that over 3,000 souls were lost when the Twin Tower came down on September 11th, 2001. 2001. And so bin Laden gathered a lot of people behind him to commit atrocities. So he had a vision of where he was going. He led others into that vision, even though it was not the right kind of vision that we would want anyone to go into. But he led them and they followed him. So it's not an example of leadership, the right kind of leadership that we're talking about on this platform. So leadership is a relationship that creates positive change. There must be a positive transformation, a change from where you are today to a better tomorrow, to a greater tomorrow. And Quincy Adams said, if your actions aspire others to dream more, to learn more, to do more, and to become more, then you are a leader. So at the basic level, this is what leadership is all about. And I really would like to, in a way, ask a question of you tonight. And that question is, who are you? Many people see themselves as Nigerians. Within Nigeria, some people see themselves as Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, Efik, Ibibio, Ijo, Igbo, and so on and so forth. So when we get into a tribal conclave, where we should never delve into is to believe that our tribe is the best and others are lower than us in whatever respect. Some people see themselves as white and black. And so white are the advanced people. The black are the retrogressive people. This is a very wrong mindset. Because in many fronts, the black people have shown the world that we can be the best, given the right frame and the right context and a platform where we are starting out at the same level. The black man has proven that it doesn't matter what race you belong. In the world, people differentiate themselves in so many ways. It could be in different professions. You have the lawyers, the doctors, the nurses, and so on and so forth. All these are definition and context that human beings can box themselves in. But I ask you this question tonight because it's very important. Who are you? Many of the problems that the world have ever seen is because individuals that find themselves in the position of leadership did not ask this question. They never got an answer and they missed it completely. Because at the base of leadership is self-identification, understanding critically who you are. So we are going along tonight on this journey. And if you have never ever asked this question, you need to pause a moment tonight and say to yourself, I must know indeed who I am. So for every human being on earth, whether you are white, you're black, you are Yoruba, you are Igbo, you are Hausa, or anyone, I believe strongly that there is a creator that sent you on an assignment to this earth. And he gave a mandate. The number of us who are believers and Christians will understand this very well because it's written in Genesis chapter 1. That's the very first book of the scripture. In verse 26 there, it says that your mandate is to have dominion over the earth. That is the mandate. But in verse 28, it then tells you how you should have dominion. So what it means is that given the mandate, which is the result already, there are certain provisions that God has made for you. But he then said to you in verse 28, he said, be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth, and subdue it. So your mandate as an individual, no matter who you are, is to be fruitful, to multiply, to replenish the earth, and to subdue it. Your place is a place of dominion and not domination. So in place of fruitfulness, what we have today is waste. In place of multiplication, what we have is corruption. And to subdue the earth, it means that there is something that you have to give to the world that marks you out. All the 8 people that we showed at the beginning of our session tonight, whether it is Obafemi Awolowo, whether it is Lee Kuan Yew, whether it is Mother Teresa, each and every one of them exercised the gifting of God and they took dominion in their own spaces. So what we need to do to eliminate waste, to take away corruption, and to take away degradation is to go back to our mandate. Our mandate is very clear. Be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth, and subdue it. And I want to explain a little bit of this so that we can have the same baseline before we move into the next session of our presentation tonight. If God says you must be fruitful, it shows clearly that He has given you the seed already. Because if not, He will have asked you that you should be seedful. But because the seed is already in you, the potential is already in you, the capacity is already in you, all He's waiting for is for you to explore the seed He has given to you. Water it, let it germinate, and deliver the fruit to your world. And unless you are fruitful, multiplication becomes very impossible. Because at the level of the fruitfulness is where you are productive, where you find yourself engaged in a course and you are making out a product, whether it is service. And you are bringing it out to beautify your world. It is what you are fruitful in. It is the fruit that comes out of you that you can multiply. Without the fruit, there's no multiplication. So, having been productive, the multiplication is speaking to being able to reproduce. We know that as humans, the way we reproduce is to give birth to more people. 2 people give birth to 5 children. Those 5 children married, they become 12, and they give birth to many more children. That's how the world is populated. And that's how multiplication happens. So what it then means is that in that course that you are very convinced about, that is your mandate, where you are productive, you are able to influence others, inspire others to the extent that they begin to reproduce what you have produced. And if you are able to reproduce, the replenishment is possible. Replenishment will happen. To understand replenishment, just imagine a store where a woman is taking the cooking materials from, those raw materials you use for cooking. If you don't restock, if you don't replenish, over time, the household will go in hunger. So replenishment is what then leads us into ability to be able to subdue our world. Now, I want to drill it down a little bit because I want you to understand clearly that the seed that God has given unto you is what people call talents. Talents. Talents are the seed that God has given to you, and it is unique to you. Absolutely unique to you. God has wired in us individualism or individuality. And what we are supposed to do is to add our own gift to the gift that others will bring to the praise of our God. Because the talent that you have been given, like Leo Buscaglia said, it is the God gift to you. But what you do with that gift that God has given to you produces gifts that you then bring back to God. We all remember the story of the 3 guys that Jesus Christ gave talent to. For one of them, he gave him 5 talents. For the other one, he gave 2. And for the last one, he gave 1. According to their ability, according to their capacity. So each and every one of us, we are not operating at the same level of capacity and ability. So God knows us. He made us. And so he expects us to be able to produce at that level of our own capacity and ability, to reproduce at that same level, and to replenish at that same level, and also to subdue our world. So your talent is God's gift to you. He deposited them in you in a unique way. Only you can bless your world in that respect with that gift. So what you then do with that gift, the more profit that you make with that gift is what you give back to God as a gift. So when he's talking about the fact that you are going to give an account, all of us know what an account means or accountant means. Accountant count money. You don't want to do something that is going to cause you to fail. Because if you are expected to make ₦1,000,000, and at the end of the day, all you are able to make is 100,000, then you have failed woefully. Even if you make 900,000 at the end of the day, you have failed. Because you have a target, you must be able to meet that target and surpass it. So, I hope we get something here, and then I'll move to the next one. So, what is life? What is life? Think about this question very well. Think about it very deeply. Life, say, is in phases. Men are in sizes. That is one level. But one thing we have seen as we are in this world is that we see each and every one of us sleeping and waking up into some active things that we get ourselves into. People go into marriages, they build houses, they go to school, and so on and so forth. But at the basic level, what exactly is life? I saw this on the wall of one of my friends and colleagues over 15 years ago. And he wrote on Facebook, he said, life is living intentionally for eternity. Living intentionally for eternity. The name of that colleague is actually Tayo Bamiduro, the CEO of Max. And when he wrote that on his Facebook wall at that time, he was just a young engineer at Nigeria LNG at that time. But I pretty much looked at that very deeply. Living intentionally for eternity. And that impacted me in a different way. Life is not just waking up and sleeping, but it is living intentionally for eternity. A couple of weeks back, I also was in a forum where Mr. Feladro Toye, the CEO of Gemstone, actually defined life. He said life is living in full expression of God's giftings for your life. Living in full expression of God's giftings for your life. So that definition really, really ties nicely to the explanation that I've been given. Because if you are not living in full expression of your life to the praise of the one who made you, then something is missing. And between your birth and your death is what I called the dash. That word dash is not created by me. It was Benapute in his book, What is Your Purpose? What is your purpose? That is in that book that they gave that. He said, the distance between your birth and death is dash. And over time, I've sat down to philosophize around it. And I came to the conclusion that our daily action summarizes our humanity. Our daily actions summarizes our humanity. If every of your daily actions result in benefits to yourself and to others, then the summary of your life will be one in which when you are giving account, you are going to say, God is going to say, well done, and come into my kingdom. But if your daily actions is the one that, if we summarize, comes to evil, the sum of it did not meet target, then you are going to end up in the other place. But may that not be our portion. You know, at the different level, I'm also a pastor, so you can say amen if you so wish. So between your birth and your death are the things you need to do daily to ensure that, number one, you are in the purpose that God has created you to be in, and that you are doing exactly what God mandates you to do. Now, I want us to look at the wheel of life as well. Because having understood what life is all about, we can then look at the wheel of life in such a way that we compartmentalize life in 4 dimensions. So at the basic level, it is 2, physical and spiritual. Physical and spiritual. But because we are tripartite in our nature, we have the spirit, we have the soul, we have the body, then we can talk about our mental and our emotional dimension. So life is in 4 dimensions, at least. The physical, the spiritual, the mental, and the emotional. At the physical level is where you tend to your health. Because we know that someone who is not healthy cannot be productive. So health is important, and so is wealth. So we talk about the wellness, our strength, our agility, our ability. And then on the other hand, we talk about having enough resources, whether it is financial or otherwise. At the spiritual dimension is our connection to the one who made us, the one who sent us into the world. Many people have different ways by which they tend to approach God, but as a believer, I approach God through Jesus Christ. And at another level of that spiritual dimension is your relationship. And this is very deep and important. Do you love yourself? Because there's a law that says, love your neighbor as yourself. If you don't love yourself, how then can you love your neighbor as yourself? Many of our people who are really doing evil, they actually believe that they love themselves. I remember quite well the famous Evans, who was a notorious kidnapper. So at the time he was caught in Magodo, he had sent his wife to Ghana en route to Canada. The wife and the children were being sent to Canada while he was looking for a way to escape. And when he was caught, we discovered that he loved his family in quotes, and he seemed to love himself. But that kind of love is devilish love. That kind of love is one that God did not sign on to. So he did not love himself, ultimately. And how then can he love God? And how then can he love the people? At the mental level is where we talk about career, we talk about learning, we talk about trade, and what have you. It's all about growth. Still at the mental level, we talk about the contribution that we make in our community, the difference we are making day in, day out. And at the emotional level, it's where we talk about our relationship for those who are married with their partners, relationship with friends, with family, and at our workplaces. So that's the wheel of life. But I think the message that is very important on this wheel of life is that these 4 dimensions must be balanced. Let me give you an example. If your physical dimension is higher than the spiritual dimension, what it means is that you are carnal. And the tendency is that rather than you being fruitful, rather than you being multiplying, replenishing the earth and subduing it. What you will have is that majority of your daily actions will tend toward waste, will tend towards degradation, will tend towards corruption. And if your spiritual life is higher than your physical life, what will tend to happen is that whereas you are a lot more spiritual and closer in dimension to what God expects you to be, all the physical aspect of your productivity and whatever, and the vision that God has given unto you, you may not be able to fulfill it. So there is need for balance in the physical, in the mental, in the emotional, and in the spiritual level. So all four have to be well balanced for you to live a meaningful life, a life of purpose. And I want to go to the meat of our discussion tonight, which is about leadership itself being the anchor for life's journey. Leadership being the anchor for life journey. Remember that with the mandate that God has given to you, the mandate is for you to be a leader. It's for you to lead. All of them tends one thing, for you to lead. And at the base of that is for you to clarify your purpose. I ask that question again. Who are you? Because if the purpose of a thing is not known, abuse is inevitable. That's what Miles Monroe told us. And I believe very strongly in that particular statement, that if the purpose of a thing is not known, abuse is inevitable. And in clarifying your purpose, you need to ask yourself, what is the purpose of my existence? Why am I existing? There are very many frameworks that can help you, that can assist you to be able to understand this. We will touch on one of them before we leave tonight, because I realize and recognize that you may be wondering, how do I discover my purpose? How do I get on the path of self-leadership, without which I won't be able to lead and fulfill my purpose as the Lord has mandated it? So then, once you understand the reason why you exist, the next thing you want to do is to quickly define in ways and manner that it is very clear. You know, that book says, make it plain. Write it down. Make it plain so that he that sees it will run with it. Many of us don't have definitive statements of what our purpose is. What's our mission? What's our vision? We have none. And it's important that you craft this statement to be a guide unto you as the Lord will lead you. Then you communicate it. You tell others about it. Because that is the only way by which you can enroll followers. And in followers, what we mean is that those that will enable you to be able to fulfill your life purpose. Because without the followers, there can never be reproduction. There can never be multiplication. That's very important. Then you begin to then monitor, get feedback, so that through that lever, you can improve. And then you provide direction, not only for yourself, but for others. Once you are able to do this very well, then you can then move to the higher level. Because once self-leadership is founded and important and ongoing, then it's easier to be able to influence others, to coordinate actions along with them, and to achieve results. So the framework is divided into two. You create the framework, then you perform the work so that you can fulfill your purpose. And that is the essence of leadership. So look at this picture very well, and what it's telling us is that leadership is like a bridge. A bridge between where we are at the beginning and where we want to be in the future. Somebody explained it perfectly by saying that vision is actually the picture of the future that you want to feature in. And I believe that very strongly. It is the picture of the future that you want to feature in. Once the vision is clear, all the necessary resources that you then need to be able to achieve that vision will come. Many people say, okay, I need capital to be able to start my business. I bet you what you need is not capital. What you need is the vision. Because once you are clear on what you want to do, there's a way the elements of the world orchestrate themselves together to be able to produce exactly the resources you need per time to fulfill your vision and to fulfill your purpose. Now, how do I clarify my purpose? This is quite important, and it's one area that a lot of people are confused about. And we can look at it also in 4 dimensions. So think about this. What am I naturally good at? Some of us who are football lovers and have watched somebody like JJ Okocha would notice that JJ can dribble so well that the moment he loses the ball to the opponent, he could be smiling. Or he just took a shot that went over the bar and he's smiling. If you are not careful enough, you wouldn't realize that JJ, in a way, is enjoying himself on the field. He's doing what he's naturally good at. That is his place of comfort. Whether you cry or you shout or you do whatever, JJ doesn't care. He's enjoying himself on the field because he's doing what he's naturally good at. And from what you are naturally good at, that is where your passion is. That's where your passion is. And from your passion, you can actually create a profession out of it. Now, that's one dimension. You can also look at what you love to do. What you love to do. There's this woman that started, I think it's Tantalizer. And before she started, she was actually at a paid employment. But over time, every time there's need for celebration and whatever, she's going to cook and dish out that food to people. And the feedback she was getting was, hey, this is delicious, this is beautiful. And then at a point in time, she just said, no, I'm not going to just live like this anymore. I want to do what I love to do. And that's how Tantalizer came out. So, and the passion became the mission. And today, Tantalizer is all over, Yale in Southwest. So it can also be something that you love to do, what you love to do. That's another dimension. Now, you can also see back to think about it. What does the world need? And this is where people like Steve Jobs, that Dr. Mike mentioned at the beginning, came about. Looking at solution providers, providing solutions to problems. And this is where a lot of things can happen. When you look at a problem and you think deeply about the solution to that problem, if you are able to crack it, then your mission becomes clear and it can be your vocation. And the 4th level is what you do that can be paid for. What you do that can be paid for. Somebody like Mr. Feladro Toye speaks a lot. As a young boy, he will always tell us that people will tell him that his mouth is sweet. But he didn't realize that in the future, God is going to use him to be a blessing to the world of leadership, in the area of motivating others, and as well as empowering others. But again, this is what became his mission, his profession, his vocation at the end of the day. And when he coaches, people pay him for it. When he consults, you pay him for it. So it could be what you love to do. It could be what you are good at. It could be what the world needs, solving problem. And it could be what you do that people pay you for it. So what you do and people pay you for is what we call a place of your comfort. Because at the end of the day, financial reward comes in. What the world needs is what we call the place of mission and vocation, where we say it gives you excitement because you are solving problem. Most of the time, problem solvers are celebrated because they have cracked the code that others could not crack. And at the end of the day, it's a lot of admiration for those who are able to solve problems. So it gives them excitement and sense of achievement. And where your love actually produces for you is your place of passion and mission. And so it's a place of delight, place of fullness. Although you may not have money for it, Mother Teresa, for her, it's not about money. She's just doing what she loves to do. And at the end of the day, she achieved greatness. And lastly, what you are good at is a place of satisfaction. Place of satisfaction. And at the center of everything is a place of your purpose. So it doesn't matter. You can take any of these routes to get to your purpose. You can take any of these routes to get into your purpose. Now, let me go to the next slide where I'll be asking you to stop asking for permission. You've done that enough. You've got to sit back and just ask yourself, what exactly am I going to be known for? What exactly will the world know me for? Whether it's in my family, extended family, my community, my nation, and the world. What will they know me for? And you don't need permission of anyone to discover who you are. You don't need the permission of anyone to discover your purpose. You don't need anybody's permission to run with your vision, to run with your purpose. Because in there is where your fulfillment will be. In there is where your joy will be. And in there is where your reward at the end of the day will be. So I'm inviting you to a place of preparation. Each and every one of us on this call tonight, we are at different stages of this, but we can have those who have never ever discovered their purpose. We can have those who are in their purpose, but they've not really achieved the end result. We can have those people who are already achieving results, but they want to move on to greatness. They want to grow. They want to start harvesting. So there is a place of preparation. The place of preparation is what I've taken us through. Understanding who you are, understanding your purpose, what is your vision, what's your mission on earth, and following that purposefully to the point that you can be able to realize the mandate of God for your life. Prepare very well. I love the story of Jesus Christ, and he told those stories in two dimensions. The first one is who is that man that really would like to build a house and will not count the cost, whether he has enough to be able to finish it. The place of preparation is very important because that is where greatness begins from. He also asked the second question, which nation at war will not understand the arsenal of the other party to know whether they have enough ammunition, enough wherewithal to be able to win the war? So it is the place of preparation that you define your strategy. How do I want to approach my life to the extent that I can be great? Sometimes it could mean that you are going to go through suffering. Nelson Mandela went to over 20-something years in jail for what he believed in. He believed there is no difference between the whites and the blacks, and that the whites are not superior. They cannot cage them and tell them that they can't go to the best schools, whereas they send their own children to the best schools, or they give them limits to the areas they can go to in their own country. He believed very strongly that this evil one day will crash. But it took him long years to get there. But he did not waver. He went to jail. He suffered, but because he believed very strongly in it. So that's where preparation is very, very important. You count the cost. You count the cost. Now, the next level is the place of planting. If you continue to look at the weather, you won't go to the farm. Oh, it's about raining. it's about raining at 9 a.m. You look at the weather again, it's about raining 12 p.m. You look at the weather again, 6 p.m. You won't achieve anything. But it is in the place of planting that you can start talking about fruitfulness. The seed is already in you. Don't forget. You've got the seed already. The seed are the talent that God has given to you. You've got to trade with your talent. Exercise your talent. Get result. That result, invite others. Multiply it. And unless you do that, replenishment will not happen. And the third level is the place of growth. Growth is beautiful. Growth is wonderful. But if you didn't plant anything, growth will not happen. The same thing in our lives. A lot of people right here in Africa refuse to go to school. And there's a place of education because ignorance is more expensive. Poverty collects when you do not intend to grow to the level that God has ordained you to go into. And I tell you, the place of harvest is glorious. When the harvest starts coming, that is the time of celebration. But if you didn't prepare well, your planting will be defective. If your planting is defective, growth is stunted. If growth is stunted, you hardly have harvest or you have nothing at all. I want to invite you again to the space of Mandela, to the space of Obafemi Awolowo, that gave us the first television station in Africa before France in the 50s. That man showed us what is possible. He showed the greatness of Africa. Or Pastor Adeboye, who resigned as a lecturer, who wanted to be the youngest vice chancellor, UNILAG at that time. And from 32 parishes, the church RCCG is in over 200 nations all over the world as we speak, and is still growing. Get into your mandate tonight. Get into what God wants you to do and what God wants you to achieve. And I invite you into greatness. You shall be great. So going forward, remember these 3 keys. They are on your keyboard. These 3 keys will help you to be able to enjoy life. Control yourself. One of the greatest evil that is going on with our young ones in Africa, in different parts of Nigeria, is drug addiction and internet fraud. Tell everyone around you to desist from this act of destruction. Control yourself. Put yourself under control. Moderate your expectations. And second key is to look for alternatives. There's no problem that cannot be solved. Looking at alternatives will help you to be able to see what is best for you in that circumstance. There's always a way out of any problem. Remember the case of these 2 women that went to King Solomon, and they've just given birth to male children. So one of them actually slept over his child, and that child died. And she woke up and saw the baby dead and quickly exchanged that baby. And then the problem began because they are the only 2 people in the house. Oh, the living child belongs to me. Oh, it belongs to me. And they dragged themselves to the front of the king. And the king, in his wisdom, thought about an alternative. Because how do I explain who the baby belongs to among these 2 people? And then he said to them, bring me a very great sword. Let's cut this baby into 2. And one of them said, that's the way to go. That's the right way to go. Let's do it. The other one said, even if the baby will not belong to me, let the baby live. And it became apparent that the woman whose child was dead is the one that wants the other one dead. Natural instinct. Alternative brought a solution. And the last thing, you need to delete every situation that gives you tension and that gives you negative energy. If you have places where you are just being tolerated, you enter into the spaces, it's like, oh, what's this shit coming? That's not the place for you to go. The place where you are celebrated, the place where you are empowered, a place like this forum, where you are hearing this message that can lift your soul, that can lift your spirit, that is where you should be, where value are added to you at every time. Refuse to go to places where your humanity is degraded. Chances are that when you begin to associate with those with right values, your value also will appreciate because something will happen to you. And I want to explain that level of influence that will happen to you. In inviting you into leadership, which is the pedestal for greatness, I'm leaving you with these 3 keys. These are the keys that are very important. Influence is the how of leadership. The how of leadership. I remember the story that was told about Indira Gandhi at the time, a woman whose boy was really battling with plenty of sugar intake. And the woman felt this is going to destroy this guy. And the woman took that boy to Gandhi. And when they got to Gandhi, the woman explained, my boy is consuming way too much sugar. And I look at the future, I'm seeing that this boy will destroy his health. And Gandhi never said a word other than, take this boy away and come back in 2 weeks. What we got to understand later was that Gandhi himself was consuming sugar at that time. And in fact, he had no moral ground to tell this young boy to stop. So he needed that 2 weeks to sort himself out, to stop taking sugar, so that he can be able then to influence this young man to be able to stop taking sugar. So it was only after that 2 weeks that Gandhi now started the work over this boy. And that is the place of influence. Influence is where you get someone to do something positive about their life, something positive about their community, something positive about their nation that they never thought is possible. Influence someone positively today. Help someone to realize the better way. Carry them along on that journey. And at that next level, you are going to be an inspiration. Because inspiration is not just the how, it is the who. Inspiration is not the how, but the who of leadership. Every of those 8 characters and individuals that we have displayed at the beginning of the slide, every one of them is showing us what is possible if only we can follow the right path. If we do exactly what they have done, we will get the same result. But hey, you are not called into their lane. You have your own unique ability. You have your own unique capability. And you have what God has deposited in you to discover. And if you can follow that lane, you also will be an inspiration to someone. I hope and I believe that you have taken something out of here so that you can move on to that next level. Because influence, don't forget, is the how of leadership. Inspiration in itself is the who of leadership. And impact is where the dominion, the place of dominion is. Impact is about the result. Think about you as an individual. Did you enter a room and that room is lit up as soon as you appear? And there is joy and there is radiance on the faces of people, and they are happy that you have come. And by the time you are leaving that place, you leave them better than you met them. Or you have a room or a space where you have been charged with an activity or a task to play a role, and then nothing moves. I remember a book I read recently about Babs Omotowa. Babs Omotowa was the past NLNG CEO and MD, seconded from Shell. We all know Shell, a company that is of global repute. And Babs, at the start of his career, coming out as a teacher in a school in Ilorin, hired by Shell, the first assignment he was given was in a workshop to be a store supervisor. And in that store, every now and then, there were thefts that at the end of the day, they couldn't discover who stole those things or where those things were sent to. And he talked to himself and said, this cannot continue. At that level of a supervisor, he called his team together. He showed them what is possible. I want to rearrange this store. Even if it's not going to be like Amazon, I want you to be able to get close to it. He got funding, got resources, transformed the store into a place that other people want to come into and work after him. Nobody want to go to the store before. It was not a place where people are inspired to go to. But after he had worked there, he became an admiration to others, and they would like to go there. What did he do? He looked at the current situation. He looked at the future state, what is possible, and he took the people through that journey, surmounting problems and obstacles, and getting them a store that they can all be proud of. You too can be like that. All around you, look for problems that you can be a solution to. In our nation, Nigeria, if individual at our level can begin to solve little problems in our community, Nigeria will get back into our greatness. Nigeria indeed is a giant. We call it the giant of Africa. And that giant is still dormant. It's sleeping. The moment we take our rightful place in the Committee of Nations, Africa will rise. The world will take notice of Africa. I want to invite you tonight into this journey of leadership. Go ahead and lead. Thank you for having me tonight, and God bless you.
All right, thank you. Please, could you all please just appreciate him, please? If you please, thank you very much. Thank you,
Thank you so
thank you
much.
very
Thank
much.
you. We
We
are
are
grateful.
grateful.
God
you,
bless
sir.
you.
Thank you. Okay, just to take the questions which we have today, we have some questions already in the chat box, but just before we go on, please, if you want to receive the slides, please, you could click on the link. There is a link in the chat box. We have a WhatsApp group where we share it. So if you want to receive the slides, please click on that link. Today or tomorrow, you are going to get the material there. We have some questions already in the chat box. We have a question from Violet, and I think there are some other people who have some questions also, please. If you have some questions,
it could also be contribution. It could be question or contribution. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so whichever way, anyway, we'll take the chat and we'll go ahead. But just very quickly for those who came late, okay? Our speaker today, Amos, talked about leadership. Please, could you go to the slide where you have the 8 leaders, please? Maybe that it's a summary, and that will probably inspire us. Okay, he spoke about the different kind of leaders we have. 8 kind of leaders. You can see them: Mandela, Mother Teresa, Obafemi Awolowo, Steve Jobs, Lee Kuan Yew. It's there. Mohammed bin the Dubai man, Miles Monroe, and Adeboye. Then he said, "Greatness." I'm repeating. I'm just giving a summary for those who came late. Greatness is when the cause you live for outlives your life. He also went on to say that leadership is not lording it over others, and leadership is not for self-aggrandizement or for personal ego. He spoke about people who love to be called your excellencies, even though they are not excellent. There was another slide that talked about the right perspective of leadership. And he said leadership is not a position, but leadership is action. It's not a title, but it's showing an example. It's not a role, it's actually role modeling. It's not about control, but it's about delivering service. It's not about being a power monger, but it's about empowering people around you. It's not about manipulation, but about inspiration. And he went about to talk about it's not only about people, leadership is about purpose. He went forward to say that the function of leadership is to produce more leaders and not mere followers. Okay. He went on to talk about leadership meaning, and he said leadership, it is a relationship that creates positive change in the lives of others. And he says if your actions inspire others to dream more, to learn more, to do more, or to become more, then you are a leader. And that is a quote by John Quincy Adams. He went further to talk about who are you, okay? Which is another slide. He said, don't define yourself by your tribal sentiments, by your sectional sentiments, but just look at who are you and to ask yourself that great question. A couple of slides, he spoke about the mandate and said, we were created to be very fruitful, to multiply, to replenish. In one word, it's actually to have dominion. But our reality is today, it's waste, corruption, degradation, and the rest of that. And he said to be fruitful means that you are already seedful. So if you are being asked to be fruitful, it means you have the seeds on the inside of you. He talked a bit about influence, the ability to influence others, okay, to inspire others, to produce what you have already produced to them. He went forward to talk about God's investment, that God's investment in us is the talent He has given us, that your talent is God's gift to you. And what you do with the talent you have is your gift back to God. He went further by saying, what is life? You know, he was showing a slide about what is life, that life most times is lived between your birth and your death, and is usually represented by a dash. You know, if you look at the epitaph that people write on their tombstone from 1904 maybe to 2004 or something like that, life is usually represented by a dash. But he gave a number of meanings about that. He gave a number of definitions. I said life is living intentionally for eternity. And I think he said this was from one of his friends called, I think, Tayo Bamiduro. He went further to say another definition or another concept of life is living in full expression of, of God's gifting for your life. Then just after that, he talks about the wheel of life, the four dimensions of life, the physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental. And that the combination of these, you need to balance all of them for you to have a meaningful life. Then finally, he talked about the leadership anchor, okay, for one's life journey. You need to clarify your purpose, you need to manage and lead yourself well. Then you also need to fulfill your purpose, okay. And he made a statement that struck me. He said, sometimes what you need in life is not capital, but really what you need is vision. And on how to clarify purpose, he said, there are four things he talked about on how to clarify purpose. He says, what you love, okay, which is your passion that you can transform into a mission. Another thing he talked about is what you love to do. And he gave the story about Tantalizer, the person who established Tantalizer. He went further to talk about what does the world need. You need to be a solution provider if you want to clarify purpose. And finally, he talked about what are you good at. He went on to say, stop asking for permission to achieve greatness. Stop asking for permission to succeed. And he talked about four areas, I would say, that is required. One, preparation. Two, planting. Three, growth. And the final one is it's harvest. And he talked about the quality of your preparation will determine the quality of your planting, your growth, and your harvest. He ended up by talking about going forward, control, alt, delete. Control yourself, look for alternative solutions, and delete situations that give you tension and negative. Finally, he said, go ahead and lead. And he talks about influence, inspiration, and impact. And he said, influence is making positive influence in the lives of people, and that is the how of leadership. Inspiration speaks to the who of leadership. And finally, impact speaks to the where of leadership, where you the place of your dominion or your results. I hope I've been able to give a good summary. This is a crash course in 5 minutes. All right, thank you very much. Let's take the questions now. Okay, I'll take the first written question here by Violet, and after that, I see some people have raised their hands up. Then we can take them so they can take their question. The very first question tonight was by Violet. I read. He said many of our African leaders are well exposed and knowledgeable about leadership, with some acquiring leadership qualification and experiences from Western countries. Why is it that it is very difficult for them to actualize or replicate this leadership ethos and virtues in Africa? This looks like an academic, serious question. I don't know if you got the question, sir.
Yeah, I
Thank
got
you.
it. I got it perfectly. The question is, what is staring all of us in the face? You tend to look at Africa with the resources we have buried in the ground in different nations in the African continent. And with that wealth, we are the poorest of nations. And when you think deeply about it, then you discover that our big problem is lack of leadership. At the beginning of the webinar, I actually explained the mandate of God for us and why it is important to discover that. Because if you don't discover that mandate and the purpose of God for your life, you will aspire to get to the position of leadership. Sometimes you get there with different methods, eliminating your opponent here and there so that you can get there and grab that power. And when you get that power, you don't know what to do with it because you have not clarified what the purpose of God for your life is indeed. And so you chase things that will lead to waste. Imagine Africa having a lot of gemstones on our ground, and people are shipping those things away, are practically free. What do you call that? It's beyond foolishness. It is just because those who are getting to position of power have not learned to lead themselves, and so have not learned to be able to lead others. But look at those individuals that we have mentioned, how greatness has followed them even after death. I just wish that our leaders of today will realize that no matter what they do today, their tomorrow may be forgotten if they don't live for legacy. And I will just rest it there to say, for all of us listening to this on this webinar today, make a commitment never to be like those people you are seeing that are not leading. Tell yourself that I will start in my own small space, or adventure I might get there in the position where I can then show what is best and what is good for my world. The more of our tribe that gets out there, the better for us. Because at the end of the day, these leaders are actually coming from the followers. And it shows the deficiency of leadership. And that's why Aspire for Excellence and people like myself and a lot of others are rising up to say it's important that we take our place in the aspect of leadership, teach people what is possible so that Africa can be great again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is well put. Thanks very much, and thanks for the challenge that you've given every one of us, at least in our little spheres of influence, to be able to do what we need to do. We have a hand up here, Samuel Ajuse. Your hand is up, so you can unmute and you can ask your questions, please. Your words reminds me of the words of Mahatma Gandhi. It says, "Be the change you want to see in the world." Samuel Ajuse, please. Thank you.
Samuel, please go ahead.
Okay, your hand was up, Samuel. Okay, I think he's brought his hand down. Okay,
Okay.
does maybe it was an old hand or something? Does anyone have a question to ask? We're almost
Or
there.
contribution.
Okay. Our doc who spoke last month or last 2 months, she's around. Doc, please go ahead. Dr. Sylvia, please.
Okay, Sir Mike, thank you so much, so much, Mr. Amos, for that amazing presentation and the points you mentioned. We always learn every day when we come to this program. Okay, as a follow-up to what the question, the written question, I think I want clarification on a point. I mean, we've seen these great leaders, and one is wondering why haven't we seen great people like them in our own generation? What is the problem? So that will bring me to the question I keep asking myself. It was brought when I was in school, and we just can't get definite answer to it. So my question would be, are leaders born or made? Because sometimes you see these great people, Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa, were they born to do that? Jesus Christ was a great leader. Was he actually born to do that? And we also see some persons too who, out of hardship, out of their circumstances, they grew up to become good leaders and exemplary people, influencer. And I like the fact that a leadership is a process and it's all about influencing people to do. Okay. And so if you can help people to do, to change who they are and all that, to create a legacy, then you're a leader. So please, Mr. Amos, what is your own perspective? Can one be in between? You're born to be a leader, and then you also developed the principles that you have mentioned to the leadership, or one is not born and then you became a leader. I think that will help us more. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, Alvina. I believe I got that right.
Yes.
All right. So apparently, I provided that answer in my book, Leadership Got Born. There is always this contention, or should I say debate, between proponent of leadership is made by learning and all those things, or leadership is an inborn trait. I don't believe either. So what I believe is a nexus between the two. I believe very strongly that every one of us, we have the seed of leadership in us. In fact, God has made us to be leaders. It is left for us now to identify and understand our areas, our core areas of purpose. And that is exactly what I've been speaking about. Leaders are not superhuman. They are just ordinary human beings that are doing extraordinary things. And you don't really have to start in a big way. So I gave the example of Babs Omotowa, who just simply saw a store where thefts are happening because the place was disorganized. In fact, we have to organize this place. We have to take stock, and then we can be able to see things clearly. And he went about doing it as a storekeeper. His first job in a multinational. It was that attitude right at the beginning of his career that made him CEO later in life. In his memoir, he wrote that book, From Storeroom to Boardroom. And that's profound. Every one of us in our little spaces can demonstrate leadership. That at that base, at that level, you don't have to wait to be a governor, a minister, to start demonstrating leadership. Start where you are. That is the place that you are going to develop your ability and your capacity to be able to take on greater things. So they are not superhuman, but they are ordinary people like us who did extraordinary things, and you can do exactly that. For me, I don't believe that there are inborn leaders, but I believe very strongly that at the point where you ask yourself the question, who am I? What is my purpose on earth? If you are able to get clarity on your purpose, you begin the journey of self-leadership, because nobody can give what he doesn't have. Self-leadership is the foundation of leadership. If you can lead yourself well, then you can then lead others. That is my belief. And at the point where you ask yourself that question and you believe that you are ready to lead, that is the point leadership is bathed in you. And that's what I call leadership got born in my book. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Engineer Amos. Please, if you want to receive these materials, please, there is a link in the chat box. Click on it to join the Aspire for Excellence Foundation WhatsApp group. We are going to share the slides there, and you can get it. Okay. Could you go back to your slide, please, where you have your book? He's not just talking about this, he's also the author of a book. Can you please tell us how to get your book, please. Okay, for those who may be interested in getting the book, please. Okay, if you have any questions, you can also raise your hand. I can't see any hand up, that's why I'm taking this. Just raise up your hand. So please, can you tell us how to get your book, please? Or maybe introduce your book to us, please. Thank you.
Okay, my book, Leadership God Born, got released in the month of June. First, Kindu was released first on Amazon, and then the paperback also was released about a month after on Amazon. So it's available on every platform of Amazon, whether you're in UK, you're in US, you're in Canada, you're in Australia. You can get that book right on Amazon. It's also available for those who like online books in Nigeria. I think on Okada Books. It's available on Okada Books. And also it's in Roving Heights for those who would like to pick it up physically in Abuja. There are about 2 locations of Roving Heights in Abuja and 2 locations of Roving Heights in Lagos. So that book is available there. And also I have some copies with me. If you can link up with me in Nigeria, any location, I can make arrangement to be able to get it to you. My LinkedIn handle is actually what you are looking at, standing you in the face. You can also send me a WhatsApp message on +234 being Nigerian code 706 404 5286. I will repeat it again. +234 706 404 5286. 706 404 5286. So send me a message anywhere in Nigeria, and I can find a way to deliver the book across to you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I can see some people saying they need the material already for the presentation. No problem. Please go to the WhatsApp group. Go to the link. Okay, maybe let me go there. Let me just reshare it for those of you who are just coming. Okay, I can see John Goswell. Well done. You have resent it. Just click on that link. We'll share the material in that link. Just click on the link. Okay. Any other questions? We have just 3 minutes more. Any final questions before we call it a night? Thank you all for coming. Any final
Mr.
questions?
Collins, have his hand up.
Okay, Mr. Collins, go ahead with your question, please. Go ahead, sir. Mr. Collins is an associate professor anyway.
Okay.
Go ahead, sir. I don't know if he can hear us.
He's still muted.
Hello, sir. You're still muted. You have a question because your hand is up.
Okay, sorry. I just wanted to appreciate the speaker, not a question really. Thank you so much, sir, for blessing us tonight. God bless you too.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. One more hand is up. Violet, your hand is up. Your last question. We have 2 more minutes before we call it a night. Violet, please, your hand is up.
Hello, I don't know whether it's me you're referring to as Violet, because the question I asked, you attributed it to Violet. My name is Engineer Amos Olunlewo, and I'm listening in from the UK, England to be precise. And my question is this. I know there are a lot of leaders or aspiring leaders back home in Nigeria, and they wish to express themselves, but they have found themselves in toxic environment, toxic leadership they are working under. What would be your advice to these ones who want to really emerge, out of that situation? Thank you.
Yeah, so I touched on that during my presentation. I think when you believe in a cause, you have to go all out for it. Mandela was under the most brutal leaders when he was fighting for the cause of South Africans, and at that time he went to jail for it. So we cannot look at the 26 years he spent in jail and forget those years because he became the president of South Africa for 1 year, for 4 years, one term. In that 4 years that he was the president of South Africa, we saw leadership. The people that felt he's going to hate them and show them, I want to use Pepe, as Nigerians would say it. But rather, he was so magnanimous. He led South Africa through that 4 years to show what is possible. Forgiveness, humility, and compassion. So, I say it again, don't ask for permission to lead. At the end of the day, everybody knows what is good, everybody knows what is right. If you stand for it, you may face persecution, but at the end of it, you'll come out shining. Just hang in there, persist. Otherwise, there will be no change in the world. If we allow evil to thrive, if we allow wrong behavior to thrive, you can be punished for being right, for doing the right thing. Stay on your course, stay on your lane. At the end of the day, your examples will help others on the possibilities, on what is possible in terms of greatness and impact. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Could you please appreciate our speaker one more time? Okay, I think our time is up, and so we'll draw the curtain here. Please appreciate